filter it.
No.
It's good to be among you this morning. I have one simple quotation. I think now you can say quote, and it's the noun, but one simple quotation for my message this morning entitled "A Jar of Hope," that comes from Desmond Tutu. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. So nearly every culture in humankind has their own creation myth as a means to explain how in the world, literally and figuratively, we humans came into existence. And the same is true for stories that try their best to rationalize the endless, ongoing suffering of humanity. One such ancient story that came to my mind is likely well known by everyone here, despite the fact that it was written down in two epic poems nearly 3,000 years ago. Can you imagine your poetry surviving that long? This story is the Greek myth of what is typically called Pandora's box, but is more accurately interpreted as Pandora's jar. The tale of Pandora is actually the Greek version of the story of Eve. They're close in time, maybe by a few hundred years. Each story is about how the first human woman came to be created. But to understand Pandora's complex story, we first will need to back up a step or two to get the first bigger picture, because the bigger picture even has a bigger picture. So once upon a time, there was a Greek god named Prometheus. As the creator of mortal men, Prometheus had a deep affection for them, and he decided to give man the gift of fire. And I joked to myself, I guess he had a warm affection for man. And I'm saying man because he didn't create women, he created just men. I don't know how that worked, but there we have it. But Zeus, who is the god of all the Greek gods, had already forbidden Prometheus from doing this. Fire wouldn't only give man light and warmth, but it could also light their way to knowledge and to civilization. They could outsmart the gods eventually. And so for this reason, fire was considered an exclusively divine element for use only by the goddesses and the gods. But in a bold act of defiance and out of compassion for humanity, Prometheus dared to steal the very fire from Zeus's own hearth and brought it to mankind so that they might not just survive but thrive. Well, you can guess, when Zeus found out about it, he was outraged, angry that Prometheus would dare defy his authority and empower mankind. Well, of course, Zeus's first reaction was to punish Prometheus. And if you know anything about Greek myths, the gods and goddesses were really crafty and creative at punishing people and helping them in their own ways. And usually neither one worked out well. And this was especially true for Zeus. But he decided to banish Prometheus to a desolate mountain and had him chained to a rock. And every day, every single day, an eagle would come and feast on his liver, only to have it regenerate overnight. It's kind of like Sisyphus and his rock. Since Prometheus was immortal, this scene repeated day after day in an endless cycle of torment, at least until another god, who the Greeks called Heracles and the Romans called Hercules, finally rescued Prometheus. But Zeus wasn't done with all his plotting. The brother of Prometheus, who is known as Epimetheus, I tried to make this as simple as I could. Epimetheus had unwittingly helped his brother with his scheme, his rebellious act, just by sheer oversight on his part. Perhaps we would call it in the old school Christian tradition a sin of omission. Zeus wanted to make sure Epimetheus also paid the price for his mistake. So with another plot in mind, Zeus ordered the creation of the first human woman. Her crafting went kind of like your group projects in college used to go. So after the form of a perfect woman had been shaped from the clay of the earth, the goddess Athena breathed life into her, unlike Genesis 2. The goddess Aphrodite blessed her with a charm and a grace that none could resist. But then the trickster god, Hermes, who we also know as Mercury in the Roman traditions, he bestowed upon her a clever but deceptive mind and a seductive voice. He also gifted her with the name, which is only in the second poem, which he gave her was Pandora. Each god and goddess in the Greek pantheon of gods granted Pandora with either a blessing or a curse. And sometimes I say it's hard to tell which they are. But these included a number of skills. She was resourceful and had insatiable curiosity. So once Pandora had received her blessings and burdens, Zeus offered her as a wife to go live on earth with Epimetheus. Although his brother had warned him, do not accept any gifts from Zeus. The man who makes mistakes, Epimetheus, accepted the offer of Pandora. And why not? She was charismatic and captivating and as beautiful as she was beguiling. But Zeus didn't send Pandora down to earth empty-handed. He presented her with a wedding gift for the couple, a beautiful jar that was covered with a lid. However, the jar came with a stern warning from Zeus to Pandora and Epimetheus, and that was that the jar was never to be opened. So here they are on earth, this happy couple. They actually loved each other. The new husband and wife, Epimetheus, whose name means afterthought, hindsight, Epimetheus, or he who learns by making mistakes. And Pandora, whose name means all gifted, or she who sends out gifts. So do you kind of hear the cosmic plot that Zeus has going on here? Epimetheus makes the mistake of failing to secure the beautiful jar out of reach from his insatiably curious wife. And Pandora's gift of insatiable curiosity eventually gets the best of her. So one day while her husband was away, Pandora decides to open the jar to see the forbidden that's inside. Out from the jar flies all sorts of cruelty and hardship, death and illness, sorrow and strife. In a split second, the author tells us, all manner of evil and miseries are unleashed on humanity. I like to imagine the scene with a quick gasp of realization coming from Pandora as she hastily slams shut the lid on the forbidden jar. But by now, the damage has been done. Except one lone fragment remains in the jar. And that fragment is
hope.
That one spark of hope remains safely contained within the dark of this closed jar, preserving inspiration and motivation for all that is good on earth. Well, thousands of years later, here we are, we humans, still on the earth, still plagued by all manner of evil and miseries, unavoidable circumstances, and harsh cruelties that are all part of this human condition. We are as capable of bright light as we are capable of dark depravity. It all just depends on where we place our beliefs, our thoughts, and our efforts. We humans will always explore the unknown without fully calculating or comprehending or considering the consequences of our innate, insatiable curiosity. Sometimes we learn from once unforeseen repercussions of our past unbridled explorations. Sometimes. We have seen firsthand that fire and atoms keep us alive. And yet at the same time, we've seen that with our influence, they are quite capable of destroying everything in their path. Some of us, through eternity, will be swayed by and succumb to the darker forces of our human nature. Others of us, even when we are tricked and tormented by those who abuse their authority and their power, we will strive to overcome the toxic shadow of human nature in its many forms and guises. Well, perhaps this is the gift, all puns intended, of the ancient myth of Pandora's jar. That even when cruelty has spilled out into the world, one small spark of hope remains. No matter the swarm of unspeakable heartlessness that flies in our faces, we continue to protect and sustain hope in the deepest womb-like darkness of our hearts. We continue to nurture and celebrate life. We make art, we make love, we rescue the helpless, we comfort the dying. We write poetry, we sing and dance. We continue to follow our hearts and our passions. And we will always, always gather around a table with others. We continue to believe in a mystery that is greater than ourselves. That something bigger, more authentically powerful, which seeps into community and exudes from the beauty and wonder of the natural world, of which we are an integral part. We humans will continue to dream new dreams and to reclaim old ones, to tell a new story based in our lived histories of strength, courage, and resilience. We live as if hope is real, because it is. We live as though hope springs eternal, because it does. Hope is kindling for our soul's flame. It never was intended to be selfishly guarded or permanently contained. We bravely live hope as we quietly and maybe even boldly release its divine spark from out of the jar and into the world. We dare to light the way when we share the fire of hope with all of creation. And so it is.